Baba.
Yeah, greetings, comrades, and welcome to our Consciousness Study Group. It's once again a pleasure to have you joining us today. And as usual, we welcome you to our philosophical group. We actually do the reading and discussion of the book called Conscientism, which is the philosophy and ideology by Kwame Nkrumah for decolonizing Africa. And yes, today we are going on with our reading. We are almost in page 55 of this book. Almost halfway of the book. Just to let you know that we've been doing the reading of this book for the last 1.5 years. What we do actually, we always read a paragraph and share our thinking in regards to that one paragraph. Then next time we go to another paragraph. Of late we've been managing to read 2 paragraphs based on the density and the weight of this. But Consciousness Study Group starts with the first paragraph of the book. First chapter is the introduction, where Nkrumah introducing us to colonial students. From that part of the introduction, then Nkrumah takes us to the second part, which is now the chapter 1 of this book called Philosophy in Retrospect. So we look at some of the questions that are fundamental in the philosophical space. Questions like, what's the universe made up of? So we start learning the universe and how the universe is made up, and that conversation takes us to various philosophies and ideologies. We then divide us to the key 2 main philosophies. We have actually the philosophy of idealism and materialism. So idealists are those who believe that the universe is made up of spirits and ideas, while materialists are believing that the universe is made up of matter, and matter is actually the basic reality or the primary reality. In this case, we are trying to mean that the universe is made up of matter, and matter, to the physicists, they'll explain to you what's matter. Matter involves so many other things, and the definition is matter is that has weight and mass. So things, oxygen, when you call it air, you talk it tangible, abstract, and concrete things. That's what the universe is made up of. We actually discuss about the various things like whether there is inside and outside thesis. We discuss whether the universe is finite or infinite. We discuss so many other things, including actually the tools for philosophy, what we call conceptual tools. We also go extra mile to discuss other logical things, empiricism, for example, solipsism, and so many other things that we discuss in that level. We then have to come to the conclusion of that chapter 1, with the conclusion that the universe, our universe, is a natural universe, with this basic law being matter. And other things to learn again is that matter is not actually the sole reality, but the primary reality, which means that other things like spirits and ideas, and that's where the position consciousness takes, spirits and ideas are actually part of matter, but they come in various forms, which you call categorical conversion, or what you call dialectics. Also, there is the existence of dialectics and categorical conversion on how you can convert solid to liquid, liquid to gas. So we believe that ideas and spirits are actually originating from matter, and they are part of matter, but in a different state of society. But other people tend to differentiate the 2 things. Others tend to believe that, of course, our universe is a spiritual universe and everything is spirit. But again, we end up asking the question, can spirit exist without physical? And the answer is sometimes those who are solipsists or those who are idealists, they believe that yes, spirit can exist without this the physical. Some people say that you can have a mind without the physical being. So this is what we've been discussing in chapter 1. We went to chapter 2. We're now looking at what we call philosophy and society. So that's where we are currently, looking at how is the society made up and how can philosophical thinking influence the societal setup. All this we are looking in order to look at various ways on how our society or our country or our society as Africans need or should be decolonized. But we cannot go directly to decolonization process without exposing ourselves to what is actually part of what's staying African. So in this chapter, we'll be looking at philosophers like Socrates, we'll look at Aristotle, we'll look at Plato, Anaximander, we'll look at we look at Berkeley, we look at Thales, we look at Platonic, and so many other philosophers. We just recently look at what John Locke is talking about, John Stuart Mill is talking about. So we are going on with this conversation, and of late now we are ending into the aspect of also the conversation between the church and the society, where we are now ending at how is the church moving and adapting to different situations so that they still remain relevant. And of late we have also been concentrating on what we call humanism, and we've learned other things like egalitarianism, individualism, and how can individualism lead to capitalism or socialism, and issues to do also how humanism come in, which is the center, taking the center of the concentration of the universe to the human aspect and the human being, while the church was actually making a center at God. So then that is being changed by people like Aristotle trying to bring back the concentration to the human aspect and the human well-being. So all these are a few things we've been looking at for the first 1.5 years that we've been reading this book. And today what we intend to read is this paragraph that is highlighted. And basically what we do every time is somebody will read the paragraph, then we start sharing our thinking. We go around and ask each person, what do you think about that text that we've just read? So that is what we'll do today. Before we go to that, I'll go first of all to read the previous 2 paragraphs that we actually covered in the last class, so that we can bring some of our members who are joining us for the first time up to speed. Then now we'll go to read this paragraph highlighted, which is the paragraph for our studies today. So once again, comrades, permit me to welcome you all. I see Sister Ades joining us now from the other side of the Europe in UK, and Brother Joseph is in the Caribbean of the Grenada. Brother Karanja is joining us from the US in the other side, and Marco Tien is joining us from Kenya, and Sir Windhoek is joining us from Namibia. So basically we can say we've covered various parts of the globe, and we are happy to always bring this conversation among the Pan-Africans. So feel most welcome. Now, having said that, permit me to now read the previous paragraph, the 2 of them, so that just to bring you up to speed as we read this new paragraph, because I've realized we have some few new people who are not with us in the previous paragraph. So the previous 2 paragraphs start with the one that in the philosophy of Berkeley, I've talked of Berkeley initially. Berkeley was actually one of the idealist philosophers that we looked at in the first chapter of our book in the philosophy in retrospect, those who believe in idea and spirits. So in the philosophy of Berkeley, empiricism appears to be endorsed. And empiricism, to some of us who know it, is actually scientific or justification or something that you can justify or scientifically proven based on data or empirical evidence. So empiricism appears to be endorsed, but it is in fact, strictly speaking, denied. So sometimes the confusion comes in between Berkeley, who is an idealist and spiritualist, who is working on beliefs that cannot be scientifically proven, is standing in his philosophy to accept empiricism, which is statistical science or data. But as he said, he's endorsing it strictly by speaking denied, which means it's not up to the latter. Now, for however, glibly, Berkeley said that material objects were agglomerations of ideas of sense. That's where Berkeley is coming with this conversation. That material objects are agglomerations of ideas of senses or sense. He told us that it was really God who put the ideas in our mind. So that time we had a serious conversation on where do the ideas originate from. Do they originate from God, or are they just put in mind, or are they a part of material objects? So senses or sense was completely odious, which is basically more of useless or more of just there in the philosophy of Berkeley. This was necessarily so because for him, our bodies were carried in our minds. That is his thinking as an idealist and actually spiritualist. The stage could not, therefore, be set for sensation. So impressive were the insinuations of this Berkeleyan doublespeak that the grateful church rewarded him with a bishopric. And you can tell why is church rewarding Berkeley with bishopric, because Berkeley is actually believing in spirits and ideas, and is trying now to tend to factor in and take in also what he call materialism a bit, or what he call scientific aspect a bit. So he was a double-speaking person, and the church decided to reward him with bishopric. That's why I said he was more of a bishop in those old times. But the power of the church could still be felt, and philosophers like Descartes and Leibniz inspired by fear of being recognized immediately as undermining the social power of the church in favor of humanism, prudently suppressed their definitive works, which only saw the light of the day posthumously. I have already said that humanism branched off into a democratic capitalism and a cooperative socialism. The two philosophies of Leibniz and Descartes provide further illustrations of the way in which this happened. Now, at this reading today, we are going now to start with looking at how that philosophy branched into the two aspects, starting by looking at the work of Leibniz. And that is our reading for today. So as usual, we ask any member who is able to read the paragraph highlighted to read it for us. Then we can go around and ask, share our thinking. Who is ready to go first? Welcome to you, Carrington and Brother Coco. I know both from the other side of the Europe, but from, of course, the southern part of Lesotho and the eastern part of Kenya. Brother Carrington, we have Brother Karanja joining us also, probably from this side of East Africa, Kenya, and in the other side of the continent as well. So we're going, yeah. Anybody is ready to read for us? Sister Ida?
Yes, I'm happy to try.
Yeah, please read it for us. You haven't been the only lady in the room today, but you're the oldest
sure
member of this. You're the oldest member of this. In fact, Sister Ida has been with us, and I found her here. She's been committed to this reading for the last 3 years, and so. So welcome, and we appreciate your effort, Sister Ida.
Okay, thank you.
Big Ben, did you mean the oldest or the longest serving member?
Oh, I shouldn't worry about it. That Brother Sam.
No, Brother Coco.
I'll give every respect.
Then, Brother Coco, let me correct that for purposes. I don't know when Sister Ida joined officially, but there was a group that was doing the reading physically, and when they moved virtually via Google, it was what? Microsoft Teams. Sister Ida was part of the Microsoft Teams. That is early at around start of 2022 or even 2021. Then I joined them 2022. So she is part of the longest, not oldest in terms of age, but the longest.
but there are others before me. I just happened to join as well, like you all. So thank you.
Yeah, please proceed. Thank you for that, Coco.
Okay, I'll start. Oh, sorry, hold on. There's a message disrupting my... Okay. Leibniz believed that the universe constructed of an infinite number of units.
Consistent, Sister Ida. Consistent.
No, I know, slow. I'll try and be slower. Which he called monads. Each monad was a spirit, but monads enjoyed different levels of consciousness. And matter in his philosophy was a collection of spirits which were in a complete state of unconsciousness. He was an idealist, but this was not what constituted his contribution to democratic capitalism. For this, we must turn to his remarks about the nature of monads. According to Leibniz, every monad is completely self-contained and is completely windowless on every other monad. Each monad is furthermore invested with a private law of its development, a law which provides something for the dimness of other monads at a time when a particular monad luxuriates in well-being. And this whole arrangement is sanctified by the principle of pre-established harmony. In social terms, this means that every individual has an inalienable right to develop according to his nature, even if his development requires the suffering and subordination of others, either in a political or an economic sense. It is this way that Leibniz philosophy contributes to the democratic capitalism.
Thank you. Thank you, Sister Eda, for the reading. I'll do another reading slowly, as Sister Eda also try to digest the reading as well. And all other members try to digest the reading, so that after that, I'll look for the meaning of the word monads. Then now we can open up the sharing of our thinking. So Leibniz believed that the universe consisted of an infinite number of units, which he called monads. Now, each monad was a spirit, but monads enjoyed different level of consciousness. And matter, in his philosophy, was a collection of spirits which were in complete state of unconsciousness. He was an idealist. But that was not what constituted his contribution to democratic capitalism. For this, we must turn to his remarks about the nature of monads. Now, according to Leibniz, every monad is completely self-contained and is completely windowless on every other monad. Every monad is, furthermore, invested with a private law of its development, a law which provides sometimes for the dimness of other monad at a time when a particular monad luxuriates in well-being. And this whole arrangement is sanctified by the principle of pre-established harmony. In social terms, this means that every individual has an inalienable right to develop according to his nature, even if his development requires the suffering or subordination of others, either in political or in an economic sense. It is in this way that Leibniz's philosophy contributes to democratic capitalism. Now let me look for the meaning of the word monads, or anybody who might have the meaning of the word monad can share with us. Oh, yeah, well noted, Brother Sir Windhoek, and we wish you our founding president, or your president, former president, I don't know what to call it, let us say to rest well or rest in peace. So let me look for the meaning of the word monad. Carrington, please help me explain that meaning, because if you come in and also start sharing your thinking, because I'm even getting the programming aspect, computations.
Yeah.
Are you around, Carrington?
Yes, the use in computer programming is completely different and unrelated to philosophy. This word was introduced by Leibniz to just basically, it was his style of understanding the atom of existence or the atom of reality. Only that Leibniz was not a materialist, so the atom was not strictly physical, it was spiritual and had spiritual properties and could be inert or active. The computer scientists basically inherited it as a sort of to show a unit very roughly of computation. That's all. But in the case of philosophy, it is a unit of existence. So that is, they were just inspired if I may say politically, by Leibniz. However, Leibniz was also a mathematician, so you can also see where the intellectual inspiration came from.
Oh, thank you for that explanation. Please start us off with this. Being there's mathematics and unity of physically, I think, and how they can be separated. But there's also a spiritual element anyway.
which is always confusing for me. But
Now, this is the only time where physics meets spirits.
that is where I start sweating. I'll try my best. Brothers and sisters, thank you very much. Happy to be here. So again, as you're seeing, there's an obsession by philosophers, even in the Renaissance. Leibniz was a Renaissance philosopher, to try and break the universe up into small bits. You remember, I think that his name was Democritus. Sorry, excuse me. And the other one was Socrates, and later on Plato, Aristotle. All these philosophers, ancient Greek philosophers, the pre-Socratics and those who came after Socrates, they were always trying to break the universe into small bits or into the smallest possible elements. Remember, Aristotle had 4, for example, or 5. So this is Leibniz following up in that tradition. And this is an important thing that we need to remember, to put in mind, even politically here in Africa, that the Renaissance, strictly speaking, the rebirth of Europe required the intellectuals of Europe to consult with ancient Europe and try to learn, as it were, from their ancestors, okay? And to try to reproduce the methods of their ancestors given contemporary knowledge as it was 400 years ago. And this is exactly what Leibniz is doing, trying to break the world up, just like the Greek philosophers, into small bits and pieces so that he can reconstruct the universe from his units. So Leibniz proceeded with this thing called a monad. There were several types of monads which could then be combined in different ways to come up with the different kinds of things, different existences, if you will, even including human beings, cows, stones, rain, grass, clouds. So this idea of self-contained, that the monads needed to be somehow self-consistent or did not need extra ingredients, is to help necessitate the fact that they are basic. They are basic units of existence. So you cannot need anything else to add to the fact of their existence. For you to claim that something is basic, it means you cannot add or subtract anything for that thing to have its properties. And that's why, according to Leibniz, the property of self-consistency and self-containment was very important. Again, we see the implications of philosophy flowing into politics. It is very important for us to try to see the geopolitical condition of Africa and try to understand the philosophy behind the geopolitical conditions of Africa. If we are confused about this, we cannot resolve any problems, contradictions in the continent. So similarly, philosophy can flow into politics. And how does it flow into politics in the case of Leibniz? These monads combine differently to create different kinds of human beings. Okay? So it creates, in the first case in Europe, it creates highly educated, highly exposed, quote unquote, intelligent Europeans, high class Europeans. And then it creates 95% of the rest of population, the working class Europeans, often looked down upon by their very own people in the aristocracy. So it means that this intelligent, highly educated European have some special combinations of monads that dominate, and therefore their capital, their wealth, their power is naturally earned to them by a naturally just process. That is, in this case, democratic capitalism. Similarly, it creates other races of human beings, the Asians, the South Americans, the Africans. In a sense, because of their natural combination of monads, the monads of Europeans maybe express better. And because the monads of Europeans express better, the domination of Europe over these respective continents and people makes natural sense. And therefore, you can see how slowly these philosophies, and I guess this will show up in later paragraphs, will feed into the first versions of capitalism that get introduced. Imperialist capitalism, imperialist mercantilism that we have discussed, founded on racism and racialism and culturalism. But I guess this will again flow into the later paragraphs. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Carrington, for starting us off. Now, I really appreciate what you've said, but I want to get your opinion in the second last sentence in this paragraph, especially where it says that in social terms, this means that every individual has an inalienable right to develop according to his nature. That is not a big part of my concern. The second part of that sentence says that even if his development requires the suffering and subordination of others, either in a political or an economic sense, is this more of what also led to slavery, exploitation, and anything else? But just try to share with me your thinking in regards to that.
Yes, exactly. As I talked about, these ideas that there are natural, let's say, tendencies, right? Amongst the business class, the merchant class, and the aristocratic class, together with the, of course, the monarchy of Europe, that they have a natural ability to dominate not only their own classes in Europe, but also to dominate other races, other human beings. And this comes from the fact that they are naturally gifted, as it were. And I'm sure you have heard of similar arguments, again, not just according to races, but according even in a class that is full of, I don't know, black pupils. You can hear this one is naturally gifted. This one has issues. This one. So rather than to examine the conditions that are leading that girl or that boy to do very, very well, we assume that since these conditions are natural, the kid is naturally gifted. And therefore, as teachers, our job is to concentrate. These are poor teachers, not the kind of teachers here. Our job is to concentrate on the top 10 and hope they lift the mean of the class. The rest of the kids can just basically survive. And this is where this sort of natural abilities philosophy comes from.
Brother Carrington, when you're talking of the aspect of natural, we found this argument of natural, people being natural, either slaves and the rest, coming up, I think it was in the argument of Aristotle, remember?
Correct.
In the society, when they said that he never had issues with his society enslaving others or even inequality between genders. Yes. And that man assumes a lot, because if you see in that context at that time, that some people are natural slaves, something I think Socrates was trying to challenge by his meno aspect. But the slave boy in the meno was not actually inferior because he was slave, but he had the ability to solve any other, for example, the tough things by then called mathematics, if given opportunity to do so. But again, Plato comes with an aspect, he says that actually what he calls some other jobs or education. In fact, he talked of education as being a means of separation, and therefore, because education will bring a doctor, will bring a farmer, will bring whatever, and therefore, I think Plato based much of his separation in a society based on education, which then Nkrumah challenged sometimes back, if you remember, that differences in functional level do not mean differences in what? Do not mean differences.
Natural ability, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't mean the original, the innate worth of our intrinsic, he call it intrinsic worth of a human being. So the fact that we are different at task level, which is a functional level, it doesn't mean that I'm inferior by worth of a being. So I'm seeing almost the same thing coming here with the natural aspect. Again, Leibniz is trying to run to. What do you say about that?
Exactly, and thank you for reminding me, because I was trying to refer to the early Greek philosophers just to show how this philosophy flows into politics, and this is a perfect example. Aristotle has built a philosophy of individualism, right? And again, these monads can be considered individualistic, i.e., they are unique and they are separate and they are self-contained, right? And from this, we have to build, because we have accepted individualism, we have to build a philosophy of social justice on the basis of this individualism. However, we need to explain the fact that we live in a slave society at the same time. And therefore, the only thing that we can attack, actually, conceptually, the only thing we can attack is this philosophy of natural abilities. And Aristotle, as we had earlier talked about it, theoretically came up with the idea of social justice and some form of equality for the men of Greece. Remember, the women were not allowed in political processes. For the men of Greece. So there's a sort of social justice and social equality for the men of Greece, but none for the women, very little for the children, and none at all for the slaves. So, but this needs to be explained, because you have just spoken about individualism. So the only thing that can be attacked is the intellect or physical ability or some sort of other thing, where you can say the woman might have the intellect of a normal Greek man, but not the physical ability to defend the state. Therefore, she should not have a say. Or something opposite, that the slave might have the physical ability even better than that of a Greek citizen, but he does not have the intellect. Therefore, he cannot also have a say in the defense of the state. And these natural, quote unquote, abilities are used to create classes of citizens. And this similar philosophy was used to in Europe and even in imperial Britain. For example, in Kenya, with the different voting laws for African natives and the British settlers.
Thank you. Before I leave you for the last part, I also try to see some connection here. When you remember when we discussed about, it was John Steinmill that came up, or it was, I don't know, it was at the end of Aristotle's, when Nkrumah says, I think somewhere that individualism can lead to capitalism or socialism.
Yes.
And we are meeting up there, actually, is the still element of humanism, which basically is more of also individualism, focusing on the human being, that is say can lead to what we call collective socialism or democratic capitalism.
Capitalism, yes.
If almost linked to what we are discussing here, and when we go further now, you are seeing an element of this now monad, which in this case, maybe as you have tried to link it, also linked more of individualism in one state, leading to something called capitalism. What do you say about that?
Yes. So what happens, in my opinion, now this is just my opinion from my small reading of history, is that a lot of, once you accept the philosophy of individualism, now how you are going to combine these things, it is like pap or ugali and sukuma or greens and some meat. How you decide to cook the stuff, how you decide to prepare the stuff and present it matters. It is influenced very, very strongly by your culture, right? You can come from a culture where you use spices. You can come from a culture where you just boil the meat. So these cultural and historical processes will then explain whether you end up in the route of democratic capitalism or social or collective socialism, or a mixture of both in the case of some countries in Europe.
Thank you, Brother Carrington. Brother Coco, please come in.
You expect me to come after Brother Carrington?
I'm requesting you come after Carrington.
That is high praise. Thank you very much, Brother Coco.
Yeah, Brother Coco can help supplement. Brother Coco can help supplement the spiritual aspect of it a bit alongside with Brother Raspala. But I also see I think Brother Kwame has joined us, if I'm not wrong. And also another Kwame Simpong. Brother Kwame, feel most welcome. We miss you. And your Brother Kwame Sampong also, who has joined us as well. Brother Kwame, I want to hear your voice. Welcome. I know he hasn't connected this audio, but he will be connecting. Yes, Brother Coco, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. Allow me to try and read what they say here about democratic capitalism, because it's at the end, at the far end, and you, by reading this backwards, you realize that he was setting the stage for all about this democratic capitalism. So I'm going to start with democratic capitalism, and then I'll come and share my views. It says here, democratic capitalism is a political and economic system that attempts to integrate the principles of capitalism with those of democracy. And here's a breakdown of its key characteristics. The core components are capitalism. It involves a market-based economy with private ownership of the means of production, free markets, and the pursuit of profit. And democracy, on the other hand, it involves a political system with free and fair elections, rule of law, protection of individual rights, and political participation. Okay, so what we are trying to, or he's trying to tell us here, is that Leibniz was a proponent of this system of democratic capitalism. Because how do you do with democratic capitalism? Anyone who has the right to develop should develop, regardless of how they subordinate the others in getting there. Which is funny. It's saying it's a fair system, but at the same time, it enables anyone who has more power to subjugate anyone else to get there where they want to get to. So, which again underscores what we are seeing in the world today. You hear lots and lots of people saying, "Oh, the Western world is a democratic world. We have a, democratic governance system." They will say that our principles of fair governance and whatever. But when you look at that carefully, it's a system of domination. Nothing else, nothing short, nothing long, nothing less, nothing more. It's just a system of domination. You have more money, you can buy elections. All right. You have more money in the company, you can get away with murder. You can do anything. Wherever you have more, anyone else who doesn't have as much as you, they are definitely going to suffer because of you. And I think they were talking about that. I was listening to Kehinde Andrews. Listen to Kehinde Andrews if you can, because he is talking about that. It's a system. We are within that system in which some people have benefited. In fact, the Western world has benefited from the exploitation of Africa, Asia, and all the other global South people, all the brown people. they have been exploited for us to be living in the West, enjoying the benefits that we have in the West, regardless of what they can say, oh, it is a progressive system or whatever. They have benefited from subjugating the other people who don't have enough. And they are using this same principle to say, you have more, therefore, if you have more, you can get anything you want. And they are using the same law in where they created the colonies. They created the colonies, put the laws which they knew those laws did not exist, but the people have to abide by those laws. So in a way, we have to abide by those same philosophies that these people followed. Hence why Dr. Nkrumah has decided to pare this down, to pare it back and come out and show where are these philosophies from. And it's important, again, now that we are learning it, to understand why are we learning this? Why are we wasting our time learning about European philosophies and the likes of it? But you need to know where they are coming from. You need to understand the people who you are dealing with. Today in the meeting, we have a new team which was constituted. So we had to introduce ourselves. And me and my other Ghanaian brothers, we are the only Black people there. So they asked us, what kind of interest do you have in books? So I had to go first. And I said, Fanon and Kwame Nkrumah. And then he came after. He said he likes challenging stuff like the Bible. I was like, yeah, there's nothing I can do or say this time. But let's wait and hear what the British say. The British started saying, oh, I read Greek and Roman studies. I read Greek and Roman mythology. I read Greek and that. This is what I do. This is what I'm interested in. One said the Victorian times. One said it's that concept of self-sustenance. It's self-sustained. You understand? They cannot learn from anyone else because they think they have enough within what they have. And this is what they take and export to Africa and say, this is what you have to do. That's why we are still using the Roman Dutch law in Africa, because we thought this is the superior law, is the best law. But the people I blame the most are our forefathers who said, okay, we will have to protect this Berlin Conference borders. We'll have to protect everything which we got here. Why? Because they got the same education. And Nkrumah is laying it out here in front of us to say, look at this, break it down, think about it carefully, and think about what you are saying. All right? It's the same as what Rodney said. Rodney has looked at this and said, you know what? Some of them, they didn't get enough education. Okay? You can say Congo at independence, they had very few qualified people, very few graduates. It's one way of the coin. It's the other side of the coin. The other side of the coin is the West one, where people like Banda, people like Houphouët-Boigny, and Leopold, they saw themselves as French. They have been so well educated in the French or the Englishness that for them it was it. That was it. So let's go to the monarchs and talk about monarchs. The monarchs is a particle, is a unit. Is him refusing to talk about materialism. He's trying to run away from everything made up of matter. And hence he comes up with a made up word of a monad. That monad, if you break it down, you can find that any individual within a society will have their own rights. But in Ubuntu, we recognize that I am because we all are. But what he is saying here, by that you are self-contained as a monad, it means I don't care what you want. I don't care about what is what I want that matters. And hence why in the end he tries to, they talk about democratic capitalism, which doesn't even make sense. Capitalism is capitalism. Why should it be democratic? If I have money, I put money there, what's democracy about that? There is no democracy about that. You can't even vote. You vote for only those that have money. You can't vote for anyone in a company. Again, even in society that we live in, Pigman is a clear example. He knows very well, if you don't have money, that democracy doesn't mean anything. And go read Silent Coup, go read the New Confessions of an Economic Hitman. You will realize that even that democracy is a fallacy. It's a fallacy. It's a coup of the majority by a minority, as we have seen with Trump in America. And it's coming now, where they either the educated elites or the billionaires of this world, they can do whatever they want. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Coco. Thank you for that. Brother Kwame. Brother Kwame?
Yes, Brother Pigeon.
Yeah. Can you come in? Are you able to come in on anything? Or you just still be listening for now?
Let me listen for a while.
Okay, thank you. Let me get to Brother Joseph. Brother Joseph?
Yes. First of all, I want to concur with both Brother Canton and Brother Coco. I think they helped us to expand our awareness or consciousness as well as much as possible. I will also say that there always are people who will try to slow down the pace of transformation or change by coming up with ideas of philosophy that sold the intensification of eradication, the whole order. And a case in question is when Karl Marx advanced the idea of the basic two classes, the owning class and the laboring class. Max Weber came up with this concept like, no, there is a bureaucratic class. There's a class of people who, the bureaucrats, with obscure things, from being, the two classes, but those who own the means of production and those who have to sell the labor or forced to translate themselves for a wage. So I would say that it's also asked us to what forces us to reconsider or to consider what Amical Cabral said. Whenever you come from a period of oppression and control, it is prudent for that people to go back to the higher the higher practice of the former, of what they knew before. So, and I think it was Brother Carrington that says, or whoever, that they went back, that one of the things was that the people were saying, was the people in the Renaissance were supposed to do, hope I'm able to capture it well, is to go back to the ancient European and find out, the basis of how they solve problem and so on, so that they could make use of the new knowledge that they have. And I think this is something that African people have struggled with because of the brainwashing. Because of course we have the influence of spirits, spirituality, and then we become frightened or confused because we don't want to sound like if we are not being authentic. If we ascribe to the place of spirit in our life. I'm not trying to go back to the idealist thing, but this is something that has to be resolved by our people in terms of how we do, because there are people who, the basis of their life is spiritual propulsion. And I want to before again, like I did last week, to Bonfu Tome, that Burkina Faso spiritual leader, who when she speaks, it's no different from what we're speaking here in terms of In fact, our name really means keeper of the rituals. I mean, we need to ask ourselves, are we afraid of doing the rituals that our ancient people did in terms of keeping that connection with the earth and with nature and with life? So I will just stop here for now.
Thank you, Elder Joseph. Sister Ida?
Sorry, I don't think I'm quite ready at the moment, but I am listening very carefully. Thank you. Or maybe, okay, hold on, let me just see. Maybe what I can say is that it seems to be talking about spirits. And I think that whether we like it or not, in a way, we're all spirits. Whether we're spirits that encompass past spirits as well as current spirits, I think that may be part of this. Let me try and get this word right. What was the word that was used? Monads. That we all belong to certain groups, both spiritually and actively as people. And when I say certain groups, I don't mean just by color, but we belong to a certain way of upbringing, of thinking. And then if we allow ourselves to go further and dig deeper, we may be able to channel into other spirits. I don't really like to say all this because I'm not very into spirits, but you know, it seems to be part of the way of thinking in the past and even in the present. So I'm not quite sure what exactly I'm saying, but because they're mentioning spirits, I have to open my mind a bit and try and see, because I agree with what Brother Carrington said. I agree with what Brother Coco said, but then I think that there's also a bit of a deeper, because Leibniz had decided to use spirits rather than talk about people and like capitalism or socialism, things like that. He's chosen a different way to say that groups belong to different groups. And really, I think we should be asking General to be talking more to us, because this sounds right up his field about spirits. But I don't think I've got much more to say. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Now that you've talked of General, please come in. Raspala?
Yes, yes. Son of the lake. Give thanks, family. That's it. What must I say again?
Please share your thinking in regards to the text and the spiritual angle still in the text as well.
Okay. Okay, so basically, from my subjective point of view, basically, I relate to all the speakers who came before me. And again, I elaborate that all sciences come from Ethiopia, which is the ancient civilization of the black people, as we know. And that science was called Nwapo, which is spiritual science, which is the highest form of science. Spirituality basically is the highest form of science, because the word spirit itself can be interchanged with the word energy. And as we know, energy is basically everything in this world. So if you can try to understand this spirit thing in terms of energy, it can be easy to understand. Sorry. For instance, let me make an example from this guy. What's his name? Leibniz. I don't know how to spell it, pronounce it. Leibniz, yeah. So basically, he's just regurgitating I think Brother Coco alluded a bit about that on the issue of the monarchy. So this word monads, even by the way you pronounce it, already tells you that it's a derivative of the word monarchy, monads, monarchy. So it's just an interchange of the ideas of the monarchy. And the monarchy of the the ancient black civilization, I'll just close it with this statement. As we know it, civilization which is Ethiopia 200,000 years ago, when the humans were created, you see, we had this issue of energy, inferior energy or superior energy. But in science, we have some sort of euphemism for these words, which is dominant genes and recessive genes. So, to make an example, when a black person has relations with a white person, what happens? The child. So we know what happens. The child will fall more on the dominant genes, which is the genes of the black person in that relation. This is a story of many black people, famous black people. We know, for instance, even Bob Marley himself. His father was a white man who took advantage of Bob Marley's mother, that black woman, Usitela. So, but when you look at Bob Marley, he has African hair, he has African skin, you see, and his consciousness, which is the DNA or this monad that this Leibniz is alluding to, is the consciousness of black people, because the essence of his life and his struggle was for black people, not white people, even though his father was white. So I think that's how we can understand this issue of genes, because I think this issue of energy or spirits that these Greeks were playing around with was a derivative from the all of the black people of the monarchy. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Raspala. Brother Komi, will you come in? Or we have one more person?
Yeah, brother Pigeon. Yeah, continue. When Raspala speaks, he speaks. He's an authority in this area. So I don't know much. As I said, I don't know much about this. I'm learning myself from Raspala. So yeah. So continue. Yeah, I'm listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Sister Myra, are you now in a position to speak? I know you were not in a position to speak back then, but if you're still not in the position to speak, we will still go around and discuss this, because we have gone round through all members. They have shared their thinking. If anyone feels to share their thinking, feel free. I haven't shared my thinking myself in this chapter, in this paragraph. But if there's anyone who wanna come in, please let me know before I share my thinking. And if there will be no further thinking, then maybe we'll get to the next paragraph. Anybody wanna come in?
Yeah, the thing about it is that there was a time when the politics and the economics wasn't so closely. I mean, in the sense, for instance, it is American capitalism that promoted the concept of democratic society within the capitalist framework more than any other capitalist arrangement. So people are confused because today we have capitalism in China, but is considered a socialist or communist country. Likewise, we had state capitalism in the Soviet. So the system, the economic system, not necessarily what the political system is. So sometimes people are confused. From the time they hear the word democratic, they think that is everything to do with the society, and so in most cases only about the economy, rather than did I say economics? When for instance in capitalism, it's just about the economy, not about even the people or the environment, not about the ecology. So these are some of the things we need to be clear on, and how we need to also understand that where we move, where the open society moved from, where the church had the control of the people and they were by and large encouraged to be poor and hungry and so on. And then these folks came, Calvin and so on, John Calvin and so on, in the Reformation, in the process of the Reformation, said no. There is another way, and people are not destined to be hungry and poor and that kind of thing in order to get to heaven. And the idea of the Protestant ethics, working hard and learning, whether it means bleeding, working people to death, and letting people work, the pain and breaking up of the family unit by how the factories were set up in the urban, in what became as the urban areas, away from the rural areas where people had a basic stable life before and lived in larger groups rather than that single parent, that nuclear family structure. All of these things have evolved and shaped the way we are thinking now. I think we need to think deeper and go further back and see how we are brought into, by virtue of influence of church, education, and even the media and more in recent times. So all of these things impact on us. I just thought I'd share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Joseph. I'll try to share my thinking. I'll go back to how we arrive at this paragraph, because I think the previous paragraph is ending, which I'll try to refer to as I share my thinking to this. It started by that the power of the church could still be felt. And philosophers like Descartes and Leibniz, inspired by fear of being recognized immediately as undermining social power of the church in favor of humanism, prudently suppressed their definitive works, which only saw the light of the day posthumously. I have already said that humanism branched off into democratic capitalism and social cooperative socialism. So I think then Nkrumah is trying to show us the one part of democratic capitalism in this paragraph we are reading today that is originating from humanism. And as I had asked Brother Carrington, I think I'm trying to equate this word humanism with the same word we came across last time, individualism. Because when we are dealing with individualism, it was also said that individualism can lead to capitalism or socialism. Now, Nkrumah ends that previous paragraph by saying that the two philosophy of Leibniz and Descartes provides further illustration on this. So then here Nkrumah is leading us to this Leibniz now philosophy. And Leibniz is going back to the universe. And he's saying that, I think this is what we came across in the previous first chapter, when we were looking at what's the universe made up of. Now Leibniz is saying universe consisted of infinite number of units called monads. To us in the previous chapter, I think when we start the first chapter on philosophy in retrospect, you say the universe is made up of matter. So I don't know if then Leibniz in his assertion of units here is calling monads, maybe he's equating monads with the word matter, but I think then he's giving them spiritual aspect. Now he's saying that each monad was a spirit, which in case to my thinking I think is running, or I could equate the same monad as I had said with the word that the universe is made up of infinite units, which I call either matter or matter. Brother Carrington, is the matter the one made of, or can this monad be equal to matter or equal to atoms?
No, sorry, can I come in? This, what you are reading about monad is not matter. Monad is a spirit. Basically, that's what it is. And it has a level of consciousness. So we are talking about idealism here. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. Idealism. But I was trying to look at Brother Carrington. In physics, can then monads be equated to something like
Sorry.
atoms?
Yeah, sorry. I didn't mean that Brother Carrington can't come in. Brother
Okay.
Carrington, please free to come in, forgive.
I wanted to know, is this monads, can it be equated to atoms in this case?
So thank you very much, Brother Pigeon, Brother Kwame.
Yeah, sorry. Brother Carrington,
yes.
before you can, Brother Pigeon, the answer is no. Monads are not atoms. Thank you. All right. Please, Brother Carrington, continue.
Yes, Brother Kwame is essentially correct, but they are the analogs of atoms if you are a materialist, right? It is the basic unit of the material construction of the universe. Just the same way, if you're constructing the universe in an ideal manner according to Leibniz, you use monads, these spiritual entities, but they are not the same thing.
Okay. Thank you for that. So, that's what I wanted to know, because it's trying to bring down the level of consciousness. Each are different level of consciousness, which I also is very interesting to me in this aspect of my sharing of my thinking. What could have led to monads having different levels of consciousness? Because to us, in the material angle, we say matter exists in various forms or in various stages. Either it can be liquid, solid, gas, or whatever. But here now is putting monads in a spiritual aspect, and they say each had different level of consciousness. Which then brings also what I was feeling in regards to what Aristotle was arguing in a society for people to take up political decisions, that some, especially the slaves, were not given the political rights or what, because they were not believed to be conscious enough to make political choices. But here now is coming also with the hierarchy, which is then I'm seeing in more of idealist thinking, where we place also the church and the priest at a higher level of consciousness or whatever they we call it. I see it's also coming in this level of monads and their level of consciousness. And I'm also seeing that and matter in his philosophy was and matter, and I say he's bringing matter, and matter in his philosophy was a collection of spirits which were in a complete state of unconsciousness. This is a very serious statement that is making here. That matter is a collection of spirits.
Yes. He's an idealist. So this is exactly idealism for you.
Okay. It's very interesting to bring that and actually contradict that, of course, from our material position. That matter can't be this level of, or a collection of what you call spirits. But Brother Raspal, I know you're touching spirit and you're raising up your hand. I don't know if you want to interject for some clarification, please. General Minaki.
Yes, son of the lake. No, I just want to interject on this issue of matter. He said matter in his philosophy was a collection of spirits. It's just like what I said in my statement. Your body that you have now that you're using to speak to this Zoom meeting contains DNA of many black ancestors that are in line with what you call your blood line. So that's why I'm saying in some way or another this guy is talking the truth, but since he's white, okay, obviously he's going towards capitalism.
Brother Raspala there. Are DNA spirits?
Yes, my lord, to some degree we can say the DNA is a spirit, because check this out, and Timos, we are saying spirit and energy is one thing, you see. That is whatever which moves in this world, including insects, has energy, has spirit, you see. So that's why I'm saying we must look at spirit in terms of energy when we talk about science. Energy in the Bible or in religion is just used with the word spirit. Otherwise, it has the same meaning and functions.
Brother Carrington.
Yeah, sorry, can I
Yes, Brother Kwame. Yes, Brother Kwame.
Yeah, Raspala, thank you for that clarification. So one of the things we've asked in the past, Brother Raspala, you remember, we asked the question, what is spirit? And when you ask the question, what is spirit? As far as I know, no one has ever been able to explain to us what spirit is. They use the word. It's interesting you are saying that if you really define the word spirit and say actually spirit is basically another word for energy, then that gives it a different meaning. And then at that point, one can talk about spirituality and one can talk about science, because then those who are into spiritual science can talk about energy in the sense that what it means that it's spirit. And then those who are scientists, like Brother Carrington, who is a physicist, can also talk about energy, but they won't use the word spirit. But they will talk about energy. So if we then say that the universe spirit is energy, and we put it out, then we have no problem with spiritual science, because then what we are saying is that when we are saying spirit, 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 what we mean is energy. But it's science, by which I mean physics, that has given us some of the deepest understanding of what energy is as a physical phenomenon. And as we all know, and Brother Carrington is here, he can educate us on this part. He can tell us about the light spectrum, the spectrum of light, from radio waves to gamma rays and all that. And our eyes are only able to perceive a small section which we use in this world. And there's no reason to suppose that there aren't entities that also can use other parts of the light spectrum. We know, for instance, if in the night, we know that owls can see just as we see in the day. So yes. So I'm saying that if once we begin to see spirit as energy, we have no problem. We are at home, because it is a position of conscientism that our universe has a spiritual dimension anyway. We have no problem with the spiritual. All we are saying is that it has its roots in matter. Now, if ultimately matter is energy, then we are saying the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you, brother Coming, for coming in, because I wanted to go to Brother Carrington almost in the same light. But then,
That's fine.
Brother Carrington,
Yes.
is energy same to spirit as Brother Raspal is trying to say? I think if Brother Kwame has said it clearly, if we take spirit in that context of energy aspect, but then if we were to equate the word energy in the word spirit as used in this text, could it bring different meaning? But from your son's aspect, first of all, the energy and spirit.
So yes, first of all, just to warn people, I am very spiritually unsophisticated. I am a committed materialist. So what I would say here should not be taken extremely seriously, especially by the spiritually sophisticated. If you, my problem with the spiritualism is of course, and Brother Kwame has alluded to this, is different cultures define spiritualism differently at different times. So in the end, if you define spiritualism as some form of energy, as some form of information, as some form of configuration, you end up in a situation where, yes, it is scientific and these things have been observed, right? There's a nephew of yours right now that behaves exactly like your grandfather. How would you explain that? If your nephew or if your great nephew has not met your grandfather, how does that work? Is this magic? No, it's some form of biology and transmission of genetics and transmission of something called epigenetics. So this information is somehow conserved, as Brother Raspala has very well explained, in the bloodline, right? There are some things that Africans do naturally, which come very which come very hard to Europeans, and vice versa. I have had a very rough time living in Europe because of the temperature, because of the weather. while Europeans will have it very rough living in Africa. So how do you explain these things if you are not going to explain them using genetics and epigenetics and environmental factors? So I think there's if you define it that way, then it makes sense for me. And then the physics of it begins to make sense. I'm sure some of you have heard of string theory. String theory goes further than usual atomic and quantum mechanics and atomic physics. It tries to redefine the entire universe in terms of configurations of energy rather than configurations of atoms. It tries to define the world in terms of energy and its vibrations rather than atoms. And this way, you can sort of see the sense of it coming from some sort of monad if you accept this very, very strongly constrained definition of monads. But the problems of consciousness and idealism still haunt you because you have surrendered that.
Okay, thank you. So you confirm to Brother Kwame?
Yeah, let me take the opportunity because I'll be getting off in the next stop, not the next, the one before that, and then I'll join later again. So let me take the opportunity to make a few contributions just to add to the conversation, and that is that who was Leibniz? Who was he? I don't know if you all know this, but he was a French philosopher and mathematician. Who was Descartes, or Descartes, as some would say. Brother Pigeon, remind me, have we dealt with Descartes yet? Or is it in the other paragraph?
No, we are only on Leibniz. We were not
Only
able to
on
go to
Leibniz.
Descartes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify before I say anything about him. So let me just focus on Leibniz then. So Leibniz was a mathematician. So the reason my camera is not on is I'm in a train. That's why I put my camera off. So Leibniz was essentially a mathematician. And to cut a long story short, he and a gentleman, an English, so Leibniz was French. And he is another gentleman called Isaac Newton, which most of you would have heard about. And Brother Carrington can tell us more about Isaac Newton if he wants, and if people want to hear about that. So he contested something in mathematics with Isaac Newton. And in fact, it led to diplomatic row between the English and the French. And basically, it was to do with the invention of something called the infinitesimal calculus. Calculus is a branch of mathematics, and you won't learn it in high school, in secondary school, or even in college. Calculus is only done at the university level because it's very high mathematics. And infinitesimal calculus, to break it down, basically says that for any number you can find in terms of the real numbers, you can always find a number, something that is smaller. So take any number you like. Let's take the number, shall we say 0.000000000 all the way to 100. Yeah, all the way to 100. Yeah, in other words, there are about 99 zeros. Yeah. Now that number is called Google in mathematics. The website Google got its name from mathematics. Now, that number is very small. It's very, very small. But what infinitesimal as an idea in mathematics says that even for that number, there is another number that is smaller than that. And what is that number? It is called an infinitesimal. So what I'm describing is how calculus was invented. It same
Brother Kwame, we can't hear you clearly. Brother Kwame? Okay. Or when he will be able to, be in a good place, he'll come back. So thank you, Brother Carrington, for contributing to this. I was just trying to share my thinking. Brother Kwame? Brother Kwame? Brother Kwame? Brother Kwame?
But the problem for Isaac Newton, can you hear me better now? Can you hear me?
We lost you when you were trying to. We lost you when.
Can you hear me okay?
We lost you.
Yes.
When you are trying to explain that is how calculus came to be.
Can you hear me okay now?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
So basically,
please start infinitesimal.
Yeah, infinitesimal is the idea that whatever number you can find, whatever number there is, any real number, there is always a number called an infinitesimal that is smaller than that number. So if you take the number Google, which is the number 0.0000000000000, count all the way to 99, then 1, make it 100, yeah? That's a very small number. But according to the idea of infinitesimal, there is a number called infinitesimal that is smaller than that. So in other words, what it's saying is that there is another number system. Yeah, there is another system, a mathematical system called infinitesimals that are different from the numbers that we know. And then guess what? These are very small. So you can see where Leibniz got his idea of monads from, because these are very small objects. They are very small and they constitute the universe. And according to Leibniz, they are conscious. So that's what he says. So that's what monads are. They are these little, very small, very minute. How small, nobody knows, but we just know they are small. So that is where Leibniz gets his idea from as a mathematician. So you can see how he may then have used that to come up with his idea that there are these small things called monads that are conscious and that they constitute our universe. So I just thought I should let you all know this. That's where Leibniz is coming from. I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you for that background, Brother Kwame. You now clearly help me understand the monads and the infinite numbers that that Leibniz is talking about. Brother Joseph?
Based on the contribution Brother Kwame just made in terms of the smaller numbers, I want to ask him, is there anything to do with the fact that it said that the Hindus gave the world the concept of zero? Is there ever have any connection with that? So
Yeah.
that
So
you have infinity.
Yeah. So basically, brother Joseph, the place value grid that we all use today, and I don't know if we all know what that is. That is when you write numbers like 0.001 or 0.1. That system came from the Hindus, and the Hindus pass it on to the Arabs, and the Arabs pass it on to the Europeans. And as Africans, we were aware of this. That is why it's called the Hindu-Arabic number system. So the number system we use today, 1, 2, 3, 0.1, it wasn't invented by Europeans. Europeans like to take credit for a lot of things. They even take credit for things that we have created as Africans. And I think that history is, we all know that. Brother Raspala has mentioned this in the past. and tried to explain in the past. I hope that answers your question, Brother Joseph.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame, for that. Now, I was actually trying now to talk of this aspect, where if we were, as you had agreed that from Brother Raspala's explanation, the spirits equate to energy, then when Leibniz says that, and matter in his philosophy was a collection for example, now put energy, was a collection of energy which were in a complete state of unconsciousness. Now then takes us back to which matter is he referring to. Because if we talk of matter, Brother Carrington will remind us, the matter is anything that occupies space and us. Is it mass or weight? In that case. Now, do a human being qualify to be a matter?
Yes.
So if we include conscious beings, including human being or animal or anything else that has space and occupy whatever, then is it right in Leibniz's assumption that matter is anything that is in a complete state of unconsciousness? In this case, then you'll either be categorizing including human being to be in a state of unconsciousness.
So atoms are unconscious, but they can combine in ways that can create a conscious being.
So is he referring to, in this case, matter as an atom state, or matter in terms of what you can even call our concrete matter, like ourselves, human being, animals, and the rest?
So in his version, these monads are the basic constituents of reality, so they combine to create us.
So to add to what Brother Carrington is saying, they are not matter. So let's be clear. Leibniz is not saying that they are matter. And this is where sometimes mathematics itself becomes problematic. Because if mathematics deals with the reality as we understand it, 1, 2, 3, then this infinitesimal, what really is it? If it is smaller than 1, if it's even smaller than, if it's smaller than 0, then what is it? So it becomes very spiritual. So when the mathematicians came up with this idea, people like Berkeley that we saw earlier really went for them. But then why is people like Leibniz going on that route? Because, as we read, they wanted to support the church. Remember the church, everyone? The church and its power. Yeah.
But Brother Conway, I was actually surprised. Mathematician ought to be a scientist.
My brother, mathematicians are not all they are not all scientists in that sense.
Or because numbers might not be real to some of them, therefore even idealists can be mathematicians.
There are physicists who are pastors. Yeah, there are physicists who are priests.
Brother Kwame,
thank you.
Are them numbers real, or numbers are also ideas?
Let's not get into that. Because let's okay. But there are basically two arguments. There are those who believe that they are ideas, like Plato. Remember Plato? And then there are those who believe they are not ideas, like Aristotle. Yeah. So it depends on whether you're an idealist or a materialist. If you're an idealist, you argue that numbers are just are spiritual entities. Because really, what is the number 1? Yeah, you can say, well, the number 1 is now 1 because if you see me, I am 1. I am one person. Therefore, I exist. Yeah. But the number 1 can be detached from me. The number 1 can exist whether I exist or not. In fact, the number 1 can exist whether all of us here exist or not. The number 1 can exist whether the entire planet, everything in this universe exists or not. So then we are moving to really idealism and so on. So the answer, but it depends on where you stand, whether you're an idealist or a materialist. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll bring in Brother, but let me proceed with my thinking as I was saying. That monads, according to Leibniz, then they are conscious. So if label monads to be conscious, then you say matter is unconscious.
Yeah, he's only trying to say that these monads have different levels of consciousness. That's all he's saying. And that there's a level at which they are not conscious. and then at other levels they are conscious.
Okay.
And so monads as human beings can be monads, and different human beings have different levels of consciousness. That's all he's saying. And so, Brother Pigeon, you are right to say some human beings are not conscious. Some of human beings are asleep. They are alive, but they are asleep because they are not conscious of certain things.
Okay, thank you. You're bringing the consciousness, then bring us back to psychology when they say there's conscious mind and unconscious mind. Or there are parts of the subconscious.
Samara is here. She can
Yes,
contribute to that because she is in psychology.
yeah, the subconscious and conscious. Is the subconscious the unconscious? Which means that conscious and unconscious can exist in the same thing, just based on the level of what you can export. Brother Joseph, I want to go to the other part of my contribution to Leibniz, but I think the only one part is bringing a lot of input, which is also very important because it helps us also to learn more. Brother Joseph, what do you want to say? And then Brother Ras, I also saw your hand up.
Yeah, on the question of mathematics, I have a book somewhere that says that mathematics was considered at one time a religion. In fact, also it has something to do with magic. There's a bishop of Lyon, I think, who had embraced mathematics, and the church saw that was sacrilegious, and they fired him. So mathematics have had a very interesting evolution. I just thought I would share that part with you. Yeah.
Thank you. You've just reminded me that I think today I was uploading many books in our library in relation to mathematics. I think some of you saw it. There's some books from where linking mathematics to Egypt and the rest. Anyway, Brother Raspala, what did you want to say? I saw your hand was up.
Oh no, my man! I just wanted to expand on that issue of the matter and spirit, on also on another form. Like, if you can look at it this way, they talk about the mind, the soul, mind, and body. You see, it can also be the same thing as what this guy is saying, Leibniz, which is the spirit and the matter, or the energy and the matter. You see, it's more or less the same thing. Because also, if you can check the origins of matter, as we were talking about, matter consists of a lot of atoms or complete molecules that are already here on Earth. For instance, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, all these elements that mix together to make the monkeys, the African monkeys we have here. They consist of these carbon, all these atoms. Such as us as the black people, we have this carbon, which makes this melanin we have. You see, so it's matter, that is matter. And then our spirit, which is it's something you cannot touch or cannot see with your physical. You see, it's like data from the software or the app. You see, it's not something, it's just here's the cell phone, the body, but now what's causing these apps to run and everything, it's that soul. And I believe, not that I agree with Leibniz entirely, but I'm just saying that some of his points are true, more especially in this where he's saying there's different level of consciousness. Yes, because look at this, I think Elder Kwame said it somewhere somehow. We also have dogs, and birds and cats. They are conscious, you see. They have soul, you see. But they are not as conscious as God, man, you see, or the humans, you see. Just as the dinosaurs, you see. The dinosaurs, before they went extinct, they coexisted with dogs and birds and the humans, you see. So, but the level of consciousness was not the same. And when there was a lack of food due to the earth issue that we are currently going to experience ourselves, the people, the humans, started to eat the dinosaurs, which is one of the key factors of the extinction of the dinosaurs. Let me end it there, my brother.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother General Aronaki. Now, permit me to proceed. It's been actually a very, very informative session that has just passed. In my process of sharing my thinking, I'll permit me to end it very shortly so that we can move towards the end of this. But I appreciate the contribution that have come in from both Brother Kwame, Brother Carrington, Brother Joseph, and Brother Raspala in regards to this. But of course, as I was saying, I think when conscious and unconscious can exist in the same matter or object. And I think this is what psychologists try to say: the conscious mind and the subconscious mind still exist in the same brain, in the same head. But then, let me get to the next part of this. Then it says that, but that was not what constituted this contribution to democratic capitalism. I'm having an issue. Of course, some members had also raised this: how capitalism can be democratic, unless I clearly understand the definition of capitalism or democratic. But let me go ahead with my thinking in regards to this. Now, for this, we must turn to his remarks about the nature of monads. Now, we are looking at monads. According to Leibniz, every monad is completely self-contained, which is more of individualism to me, and or solipsism, and is completely windowless on every other monad, which means they don't either. When you talk of windowless here, what I try to understand is either they don't reflect, they are either not same to my thinking. Every monad is furthermore invested in with a private law of its development. Now, private law of development, I think this is what brings capitalism, because capitalism is also based on private ownership, private growth, and private capital amassment, and private everything else, which is actually the true individualism that can lead, what then will say the individualism that can then lead to capitalism. Then, of course, I'm also seeing Brother Sir Windhoek is asking actually, what is this democratic capitalism? But I think is to this is his philosophy, because if he end it down there, it say that it is in this way that Leibniz philosophy contributed to democratic capitalism. Now, it's democratic capitalism in this case, probably, if Brother Kwame could help, will that it be defined as an ideology or a philosophy? But okay, Brother Kwame can come in regards to that question. But as I proceed to share my thinking towards my end, is that I'm having issue with private law that then originates from this existence of monads who then feel more of self-contained and windowless. Then in this aspect of private law, now I see Leibniz is going ahead to say that a law which provides sometimes for dimness of other monads, and at a time when a particular monad luxuriates in well-being. So this private individualism or private development especially reflects to what I think Leibniz is saying here, is when somebody enjoy a lot of luxury and a lot of good wealth or amassment of capitals, then they tend to be individual enough. Which means sometimes when they don't have it, they want to be capital, they want to be socialist. And these are tendencies we see in so many people. When you have a lot of money, you don't want to get in touch with anybody else. You are complete. You are self-contained. You are everything else you want. And that thinking of then capitalism and individualism come much on that. But we see many times when people are faced with problems, maybe there's a burial, there's a calamity, now people tend to help to come very fast to seek support or wedding, hey, contribute for me. So you forget about your capitalistic thinking or individualism in that aspect. And then he said that in this, all arrangement is sanctified by the principle of pre-established harmony. What is this principle of pre-established harmony? Brother Carrington, do you know about that? Brother Carrington?
No,
Or brother,
no, I don't.
Brother Kwame is not with us as well. Okay, yes, drop. I wanted to really understand this principle of pre-established harmony so that we see what does it mean. Brother Carrington, Brother Raspala, can you please help us understand how we can have a democratic capitalism? What does that mean? Because you are saying South Africa is practicing democratic capitalism.
Yeah, my brother. Basically, if you want to understand what democratic capitalism is, just look at South Africa. That's what's happening here. We are made to vote for someone which the shadow government already instilled.
Brother Coco, Is Brother Coco with us here? Brother Coco? Brother Coco? Okay. Brother Coco cannot hear me. I really wanted to know from Brother Coco. I know you always have issues with the democracy. How can democracy be democratic?
Also look at it on this aspect, my brother, shortly. What is capitalism? Capitalism obviously is the means of capital by exploiting Africans. That is the basic form of capitalism. And then what is democracy? Which is what? Basically the people giving power to one person to represent them. So democracy plus capitalism, what does it give you? It gives you rich people who must represent the poor people.
Okay. I get what you're saying. Thank you, Brother Raspala. Hope you can see my screen where I've moved to pre-established democracy, the pre-established harmony. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it, my brother.
Yes, we can see it.
Now, I say that pre-established harmony is the philosophy of Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, which is, of course, Leibniz, a postulate to explain that apparent relations of causality among monads, which is infinitesimal psychophysical entities, where no true causality exists. When I change occurs within a single monad, every other monad in the universe spontaneously reflects this change in as much as God in a single creative act of beginning of time. But Carrington, I'm not really getting this.
So can I come in there? So
Yes.
what basically Leibniz is believe he was a Christian. He believed in God. So all he's saying is that Leibniz believed that God had ordered the universe to be harmonious. That's all he's saying. But of course, Brother Carrington can add to that.
Now I get it. Okay. So you assume there was that already pre-established order.
Yes, because of God.
But excuse me coming in, but the brother was asking what is democratic capitalism? That is where we were really.
Democratic capitalism.
Yes, is what he was asking.
It's what is being practiced now. That's what it is. It's basically, I think Brother Coco at length explained capitalism, and so it's democratic. Although Brother Coco was questioning whether it was really democratic, but when the term is used as it being democratic, understand it to mean that what they are saying is that every child that is born, every human being that is born, whoever you are, within you are laws of development. So every child is born, and that child naturally, what happens? They have breast milk, and then later on they grow, and as they grow, what happens? They are able to they start with making sounds. They won't start talking yet, and then as the child continues to grow, what happens? The child then begins to crawl, and the child, after crawling, at some point the child will begin to walk, and so on. So in other words, sorry, can you just hold on? Have I done it? Okay. So, sorry, can you hear me okay? Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. No, sorry, I was getting out of my taxi. So yeah, I'm paying the driver. So anyway, so the child then grows, the child develops, and the child later on becomes, I don't know, a primary school child, then becomes secondary school, and then later on becomes a man or a woman, and then the child marries, the child maybe has children themselves, the child becomes an adult, has children themselves. So what is happening is that the child is developing, and every child has the laws of development within them, and therefore if Sister Ida has a child, and that child is very clever, can do his or her mathematics the fastest in the class, and I have a child and my child is not as clever as Sister Ida's child, how is it that child's fault that that child is very clever? And why should that child be stopped from developing according to his or her ability when that is the law of development at work in the child? And my child, who is not as clever, maybe can't even add 1 + 1, which is 2. How is it the fault of the child who is clever? Why shouldn't that child develop just as much as the other child? And so this is what democratic capitalism is getting at, that in a democratic society, in a democratic capitalist society, every child should be allowed to develop as they should. And the point is that then what then happens is that ultimately, so I'm looking at the time, so I don't want to go on and on. So ultimately, all he's saying is that there will be inequality because this child who becomes a Carrington later on understands physics, can design websites, and the other child can't even do mathematics, let alone physics. So they can't do that kind of job and so on. So in that sense, it is democratic because you are giving opportunity to everyone. The problem is that in real life, it doesn't work like that because a child who is probably very clever grew up in a home with books in there. And the child who doesn't know mathematics probably grew up in a house where there were no books. So that was the reason. It's the environment, the upbringing, and so on. That it's not so much the inherent law of development of the child that's made the child what the child is. That maybe the child was a black child in a slave society and therefore couldn't go to school because in those days, if you were to be educated, it was death. If you were found teaching a black child, it was against the law. Therefore, that child could not develop. So in the real world, democratic capitalism is not what it's said to be. I don't know, because of time, can I stop there because of time as well, yeah?
Okay. Brother Conley, thank you, but you've given us a good example, which if it was to be put in the aspect of what you say, why am I getting echo?
Sorry, let me, it's not from me, but I'm happy to mute myself.
Okay. Yes, so I'm saying, thank you, you've given us a good example of the child. If this was to be converted to exploitation and subordination, enslavement of Africans by the whites, who then assume that they either had the natural or ability to actually.
That is it. That is it. So you've hit the nail on the head. That in reality, that's not what happens. Capitalism is not democratic. I mean, basically, it leads to inequalities because some children are born inheriting acres and acres and acres of land because somebody stole it from their great-grandparents and passed it on to their child, as we see in Kenya, in Zimbabwe, in South Africa. It was just stolen land, passed on, and the child today who owns all that land claims that it's to do with his genes or his upbringing, which is not true.
No, he was actually meant to own the land.
Yes, precise. So you hit the nail right on the head.
Okay, thank you, Brother Kwame. Joseph, 1 minute because we're ending, please.
Yeah, I think a modern day version of what Brother Kwame just talked about, that where this thing doesn't exist in the real world, although I don't like to use the word the real world, is in the so-called American dream. Very few people, ever reach the stage of realizing the American dream. It really is an illusion. Thanks.
Very much, Brother Joseph. We are actually coming to an end of our class. Brother Sir Windhoek has asked a simple question that will then require psychologists to answer in the chat. But why is the child born crying and not speaking immediately? if the child is meant to grow according to his nature. But
please ask Brother Raspala to answer that one. Thank you.
Brother Raspala will answer that in the next class. Time is up. He'll tell us why is the child born crying but cannot speak, but can produce the sound of crying anyway. So no brother Raspala will have an answer for that. So comrades, we started a bit late, around 10 minutes. I have been waiting for members to come, but you see now we have to end and the conversation has picked up. So I really request members here, if we can make it next time, we come early. I did open the meeting 5 minutes before the time, so that we could have this time. But Brother Kwame, welcome to see you again. You really helped us with the historical background and a lot of history that then put our discussion into context, which I've really found very interesting and very informative. And to you all members who have shared the thinking, we really appreciate your commitment. Our new members have joined us today, but I don't know, they found the discussion at the beginning very hard that they left. Only one member who joined us today was stayed with us, and I will wish to give that member opportunity to just introduce themselves so that we know them. Yen Nyeya, please do so if you can be able. Yen, I think he has also run away. So comrades, this is almost meant to us, well, for us who have been here for a time, but we had almost 5 members who decided to disappear. But Joseph, I want to be able to give you time because our time is up. Maybe we discuss whatever you want to say in our next class, if that's okay with you, Brother Joseph.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. It's no problem with me.
Okay, thank you very much, comrades. Thank you for your time. It's been a wonderful conversation. Next time we are turning to now Descartes, or Descartes, or whatever name you give him. We're turning to Descartes, and we will be looking more about him now that you have done a bit on Leibniz, and I think Leibniz was now leading towards democratic capitalism. Maybe Descartes might lead us to what he called cooperative socialism. But comrades, let's look forward to this and see how we can end this in next class. These recordings will be available by next week around Tuesday, and I request you please to help us share the recordings to more members who have not been able to attend our class, to help educate them as well, because I do share this recording and share the links most of the time. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you get notification anytime I share the recordings, and thank for the support of those who go watch and put their comments. This Saturday we'll be discussing agriculture in Africa and the agricultural plan from Africa Union. We are looking forward to that. And yes, we are also having a review of the book. We have Kiswahili coming in. Then you have next Thursday, Consciousness, from where we've left it. We also have a Pan-African library where we have all books, including this book of Leibniz are in our library. We've provided them as a classical book, some of them. Beckett's books are also in the library. I have provided them in the past. So feel free to engage with us in any form you feel is necessary. Thank you very much for your time, and let's meet again next week. Thank you all.
Bye.